He's a seasoned author and speaker, avid reader, and animal fanatic who has a strong passion for helping people communicate in a way that brings them satisfaction while creating wins for everyone involved. I'm delighted to welcome back Bob Burg for part 2 of our conversation on Small Talk. Welcome back to Small Talk.
Thank you.
So we had an amazing first conversation. This is, by the way, folks, part 2 of 2 in our series of conversations with Bob. If you haven't seen part 1, please go back and take a look at and watch part 1 of our conversation. So for those, again, who just to refresh your memory, Bob is a renowned speaker, author of multiple books, specifically Go Giver. He's now it's in a few iterations. Recently, I guess one iterations is a forward that they've had from Arianna Huffington of Huffington Post, and he's well sought out in terms of the international speaking world. Please go to gogiver.com to learn more about Bob. But last time, Bob, we talked about establishing rapport. We talked about a couple of questions people can be asking. I want to now go into this conversation around, okay, now you've kind of started, a conversation. You talk about a couple of things about, being that influencer and going into that part of the conversation. Can you help us with that, especially those folks who are in a variety of industries, specifically in sales, who are trying to find individuals to grow in their network and potentially become a customer? Can you help us with that?
Yeah, well, in the first conversation, we spoke about a couple of feel-good questions in which you could really begin to develop a rapport, and of course, the focus being on the other person, not on us. Well, the one key question, after you've asked those first two, the one key question that will really set you apart from others is to simply say, let's say you're talking to Gary, who I believe we said sells copying machines, and you say to Gary, how can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good prospective customer for you? Or how can I know if someone I'm speaking with would be a good client for you? And what you've done when asking this question is, once again, set yourself apart from everyone else. Instead of talking about you as he's used to everyone else doing, you're focusing on him. But the very way you frame the question is going to help him to help you, and he understands this. So if we run through it really quickly, and again, he sells copying machines, you say, Gary, how can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good prospect for you? Well, he might think about it and say, well, if you ever happen to be in an office and you notice a copying machine, and next to that copying machine's a waste paper basket, which is filled to the rim and overflowing with crumpled up pieces of paper, that's a good sign that copying machine's been breaking down a lot lately, and that would be an excellent prospect for me. So he knows that he has now equipped you to help him, and you've already demonstrated that you are on the lookout to add value to him. That naturally makes you someone that he wants to get to know.
And do you think, Bob, from the conversation we had previously, you talked about people feeling good, like people feel good about it. It sounds like that scenario, Gary, the photocopying person, salesperson, I think Gary's going to kind of feel good about that conversation that I just had.
Conversation about himself and about you, and you become someone he sees as a potential networking contact, someone who he wants to get to know better, someone who he's much more open to finding out about.
It's all about that conversation around, giver's gain, right? You're always there trying to help people with introducing people to your network, help people with a problem that, or a solution or to a problem that you can solve. It's really about that, that connectivity when you're at an event and trying to build your network. So one of the things that you do talk about is sort of that key to being an influencer, or the key to influence. Share us your thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, if we define influence on a very, very basic level, we could say it's the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal. Now, that's the definition, but I don't believe that's the essence of influence. I think the essence of influence is pull. Pull as opposed to push, as in how far can you push a rope? Well, not very, at least not very fast or very effectively, which is why great influencers don't push. They don't try to push their will on others or their ideas. They're not pushy. They pull. It's an attraction. Great influencers attract people first to themselves and only then to their ideas. And they do this again through that focus on the other person. And it goes deeper than that, because what an influencer does is they ask themselves the question, how does what I'm asking this person to do, how does it align with their goals, their wants, their needs, their desires? How does what I'm asking this person to do, how does it align with their values? And when we ask ourselves these questions thoughtfully, intelligently, genuinely, authentically, not as a way to manipulate another person into doing our will, no, but as a way of building others, building everyone in the process, now we've come a lot closer to earning that person's commitment rather than depending upon compliance or something along that lines. And, you know, would you think about it, a great influencer understands that great influence is not about the influencer. It's about the other person. It's about everyone whose lives we choose to touch. It's about everyone whose lives we choose to add value to.
Wow, that's really amazing, folks. This has been just an incredible conversation with Bob Burg. His contact information is there. Simply, you got to go to gogiver.com. You'll get more information around Bob and potential have an opportunity to connect with him and continue this conversation. Now, Bob, last time we asked you this question, you immediately said, wow, there's all kinds of people I can think of. It. When I asked you, what is that one individual, living or past, that you'd like to have a small talk conversation with? Part one, you mentioned Benjamin Franklin. Now, I want to ask you that question again. Let's talk about someone else that you would love to have a small talk conversation with, living or past. Who would that be?
Well, another of my American heroes is Booker T. Washington.
Booker T. Washington. Okay, now why Booker T. Washington?
Well, Booker T. Washington came along at a time when he was actually born into that horrible monstrosity known as slavery. And when he was 9 years old is when he was no longer officially a slave, but he had a tough road ahead of him. And his story is very, very fascinating, whether you read his autobiography, Up From Slavery, or biographies and articles about him. And he had a turning point where he was really, you know, he was working in the mines and he was doing this and he was actually doing housework, sweeping floors for a woman named Mrs. Ruffner, who sort of took him under her wing. And she frustrated him at first because she made sure everything was absolutely, positively done 100% perfect and spotless. And she taught him these habits that he ended up embracing, and he considered her to be a real mentor. And he took these habits, and when he went to try to get a job at his first college, and what he had to do to even get there was just the journey, the odyssey he had to go through. But when he got there, they didn't have a place for him, and so he traded out staying there for a night for sweeping the floor. And that was one thing he knew how to do. He did such an amazing job. They were so impressed, they made room for him at the college, which shows if you find a way to provide value for others, good things are going to happen. And of course, from there, he ended up becoming the headmaster at Tuskegee, and he touched a lot of lives, and he had a way about, he was just a great leader. Difficult to summarize in a short term, but the odds he fought through and what he did and what he accomplished for so many people is absolutely inspiring. I would just love to have dinner with him.
That is definitely inspiring, and now I know why that is the answer you gave us for this small talk. So, Bob, again, Bob's contact information there is on the screen. Thank you again, Bob, for being on Small Talk. We really sincerely appreciate it. My
absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you to Bob Burg for joining me on Small Talk. Now it's your turn. Please comment, subscribe, and share. If you have a topic you'd like to discuss on the show, please give me a call or send me an email. We'll talk with you next time.